So let's. I guess we can get into our news stories. And Robert, why don't you lead us off?
Well, okay, so I'll start off with saying two things. So for one, I remember back, I forget what year it was, but you remember the whole story with that clock kid, the who supposedly he was um, he got kicked out of school because he made a clock that looked like a bomb, right?
Oh yeah,
You remember that?
Ahmed or something.
Yeah, whatever the fuck his name was. But I remember like when I first heard that story, and I this is before I had a much more analytical look at things, and I kind of I was like, oh well, that's horrible. Why did that happen? And once you actually like it was a few days later that I actually dug into the story and saw the pictures and read some articles like, oh, I completely like I completely looked at this whole thing wrong. Like, yeah, he probably should have been kicked out of school, based off of what he did. I mean, the kid knew exactly what the hell he was doing.
Right?
Um,
And what was it? Like, why is he showing his English teacher this thing he made for science class? And
right.
why the hell did he bring it in one of those steel
Attaché
briefcase
cases.
things?
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Never again. I'm never gonna react to these stories without actually looking into it.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, something like similar to that happened again this past weekend. You saw all these memes and tweets and all this stuff about these kids from Covington High School, and some of them, they were white, and some of them had MAGA hats, and you just see the one kid who kind of became infamous. He kind of had like this kind of smirk on his face, or what appeared to be a smirk.
Hmm.
um, and there was this Native American guy, kind of just, uh, what appeared to have, like, oh, these kids are blocking this, elderly Native American man who, blah blah blah. And I was like, but then it's like there was all this stuff, but there wasn't really any news. There wasn't actually anything talking about what actually happened. And I was like, oh, nope, not. I'm gonna wait and I'm gonna see what. And we talked about this as like, what do you know anything of what's actually going on with this story? Because I've heard absolutely nothing. And now, sorry, but now like a lot of the what has come out from the left it was all bull flop. It was all fabricated.
Hmm.
And
That's right.
it's just like the sad part is, so what we get is like this 20-second clip of something going on, but when you look at the actual full on footage, which there was 2 hours of footage apparently.
Hmm.
And first off, there was this group called the Black Israelites, who is some raving lunatic cult that
Hmm.
I'm not going to get into them, but they were shouting some very nasty things initially, because all the kids were doing, they were just sitting on, waiting, or they were standing there waiting for a bus from their school trip. Didn't do anything, wasn't but they're calling them like stuff like they're calling them fags and incest, products of incest, and all sorts of just
Yeah, just like
nasty.
pretty horrendous things. Like you're saying this to a child.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, kind of some really awful shit.
Hmm.
Then all of a sudden, this guy by the name of Nathan Phillips, just comes out of nowhere, uh, clearly not being blocked by anybody. He runs right at with his stupid drum, beating right in front of that kid's face. And honestly, that kid had a hell of a lot more restraint than I would have, because I would have punched him right in his stupid face with his goddamn drum.
Right. Um, just to quickly add, it was funny because later on we all found out this report to be highly inaccurate. And highly inaccurate, I mean total bullshit. But some outlets were saying that that this Nathan Phillips guy, he was actually trying to get in between like the black Israelites and this group of kids, trying to be like trying to be a peacemaker or something. I was like, how is one a peacemaker by drumming in the face of a 15-year-old?
Yeah,
And then
it
also
was.
and also like one of like the people that was with him, like they were like arguing him like and like saying like racist things. And of course, many, some of you might, some of you might say like, oh, well, these are white kids. How is it racist? Like by you qualifying them as being white kids, that's how. But anyways, like the guy that was with Nathan Phillips, he was like saying, oh, I go back to Europe. This is indigenous land. It was stolen from us. And it's just like, that's racist. If imagine if someone has said that something to a black person like, oh, go back to Africa. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
and the thing about, so he goes up and starts drumming in the face, and it's in the one thing is, later on he was saying how, oh, people were shouting, build the wall at me, and saying all these nasty stuff about me, and he was playing the victim, and it's like, none of that stuff. When you actually see the whole video, no one's shouting build, not on their side, no one's shouting build the wall, no one's shouting any racist slurs.
Mm-hmm.
uh in fact, like, the kids are very peaceful, and even when one of the other kids tries to confront Nathan Phillips, which they should have, the kid says like, no, 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 just let them do their thing, and he just kind of took it with, you know kind of a smile, showing it's like, hey, and
Yeah, a lot of
based on his statement, just like he was saying, is like, I'm not going to engage, and I'm not here to threaten you or anything like that.
right. Yeah, he showed the I mean not only the main kid that has been that's been thrust into notoriety, but I think all the boys they show great restraint and and like and in the spirit of when like this when this like news broke Martin Luther King Day, I think it was a great testament to Dr. King's legacy of nonviolence.
Exactly.
Because you see they show you all the time the old time black and white footage of black kids being fire hosed and being spit on and like physically being like getting like put like having hands put on them and showing great restraint. They don't throw a single punch back. They don't raise an octave higher than speaking volume. And I think similarly these kids showed that same I dare say saint like restraint. And I think
Right.
I think they should be applauded because someone like you or me, um, who wouldn't stand for that stuff, and if would likely get physical. Someone,
Yeah, I would.
especially if someone was being antagonistic and up in my face, yeah, I would definitely I'd be definitely start throwing fists. But yeah, I think these kids should be commended. Of course, you're gonna go on, but that that wasn't the case.
So, uh, okay, so no, what I think is the most really disturbing fact was, so the whether through ignorance or malice or both, you have the mainstream media who just were, they allowed Nathan Phillips a platform to spread lies, and he is a notorious liar. Um,
Right. I mean, because
he's
what is it? This isn't like the first, or
this
this isn't
isn't
the
his
only
first.
incidents where he like pops up, kind of proclaiming some sort of racial, you know, bigotry or some sort of slight against, Native Americans.
Yeah, and so this is not his first rodeo. Then you have the media who, or you have people on media members and celebrities on Twitter saying some of the most deplorable things ever. Like you have Reza Aslan, who
Of
does like
eating human brains fame.
exactly because yeah, saying have you ever seen a more punchable face?
Yeah,
And
yours.
people, yeah, apparently he hasn't looked in the mirror.
Exactly.
um, the Then you have all these people that are trying to like, oh, we need to get their names out there and kind
Yeah,
of
your Kathy
and
Griffins, your deranged
yeah,
leftist celebrity types.
yeah, calling them it's like, oh, they should die. They should never have any sort of peace. Kind of as like, wow. And here's the crazy part. Like when there was
Mm-hmm.
evidence shown to the contrary of the statements,
Mm-hmm.
narrative never changed.
Nope.
They buried it,
This is true.
and it never retract. They never wrote an apology, or they never gave an apology. Never a lot of people never retracted the statements.
Or they're
So on.
very weak or limp-wristed, kind of. Oh, my bad. Kind of,
But it really
apologies.
like but really it's the bigger narrative. Like it's kind of they worked it where it's still like we're still saying the same thing, but hey, it's maybe not in this instance, but it's still around. Well, and then there was this. Then they were touting this fake. It's saying the same thing with the same school. They were like when this didn't work, when they found that their claims were false, like because the video evidence proved that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone posted a picture from like one of their basketball games back in 2012 where it was called and for sports fans who people who aren't sports fans, there's what they call like blackout games or whiteout games or blue out games. It's where you wear like a certain color. The whole home crowd wears a certain color or whatever. Sometimes people paint their skin. It
Mm-hmm.
is kind of a way to give um, kind of camaraderie for the fans and the
Right.
team, and it
It's a morale boosting exercise. So the I guess the home team, or maybe not even like the home team, like their side, like there are like uh, it's just
right.
a yeah, it's just a morale thing to get everyone like pumped up and like, oh yeah, that's our team. We're all united because we're all wearing, we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, and so but what they're showing is like, oh, see, look at Covington High School, they're racist. Look at that black face. There's like, no, that is not what is being shown.
Right. Yeah. It's just like
It's just
the constant like skewing of fact, the constant skewing of facts to fit a narrative, and it's really quite disgusting. And I mean, yeah, it's not just what is it? It's not just it's not like it's not just celebrities like decrying what these kids supposedly did, but they're like asking, they're directly calling for violence. They're directly calling, like that one. I don't know. Is he some sort of musician or whatever? But he was like offering autographed copies of his album for like a video of someone punching that kid in the face. That kid in the face. And then of course, you have Kathy Griffin, who demanded that these kids like personal information, like their home address and things like that, were to be revealed, and and it's like, oh well, don't think like those guys, don't think those kids wouldn't dox you too. It's just like, are you freaking kidding me?
You had there was like, I think it was an SNL writer who was saying she would give blowjobs to anyone who like messed with these kids and stuff like that. It's like, this is disgusting behavior.
I mean, like, to put it in perspective, I don't like what the Parkland kids, like the spokes kids for Parkland, like, I don't like what they say. I don't like
Right.
what they say, but I would never ask. I would never like whip up a mob to go like, yeah, let's go and like dox their give out their home address. Let's go and like punch. So I want record of someone punching such and such in the face. I would never call for that. And for the sake of argument, let's say someone on the right or someone more conservative or conservative leaning, put that out there. Now, I would still condemn that as gross. Because I mean, they're. I mean, what's that punchable kid's face? David Hogg. Yeah, I mean, I think he was like the oldest of the group, whatever. But these were just kids, and I wouldn't call for the beating or the outright lynching of those kids, even though I don't agree with what they say.
Yeah, I can't. The fact that these are, I mean, they're not like little kids. They're not like 5 or 6, but they're
right.
They're still kids. They're
still kids,
13,
and
14,
they have
15 years old.
Yeah, and they have like their what was it? Patricia Heaton of Everybody Loves Raymond fame and the Middle fame. She put out a tweet, kind of defending these kids, saying like, hey, if these kids were doing like half of the things that people were saying, they would deserve all the ridicule that you have to get, but not your calls for violence, and those accusations, whether they be true or not, are going to follow those kids. Every single time that they put their school's name on a resume, or or they especially that one kid, I think Nicholas Sandman is, yeah, like especially put his name on any job application, and that's going to be immediately rejected, whether or not like the hysteria of the supposed events that happened, were accurate or not. The mere fact that that he is so he's like pretty much the only one right now associated with that event. Do you think he's gonna have a normal life?
No,
of course not. And that stain is gonna follow him. Whether it didn't, it was a bullshit story. Nothing happened. He didn't do anything to revoke him. The kids didn't surround Nathan Phillips or anything. But it's gonna follow him around. It's gonna be a stink that he'll never be able to be rid of.
Well, and because I'm not a guy that believes that in like lawsuits and whatnot, but this is one of those cases where it's like I would sue the shit out of all of those news stations, because not only the reason that he's not gonna have a normal life, they put his goddamn life in danger.
Yeah, and that's disgusting. But there is a lawyer, and I think there's been a bunch of like other lawyers and attorneys and law professionals who have offered their services to this kid or like anyone involved in that thing. And actually, there's this one lawyer from LA who's like calling out CNN. It's like, hey, CNN, what you put out is liable, and you can be sued. So I think about putting like a really heartfelt retraction, putting out a really heartfelt retraction pretty soon.
Yeah, and not at like 2 a.m. At like some.
Yeah, don't bury it. You better put it like prime time, freaking Anderson Cooper shit.
Yeah, on like your most like watched show. Yeah, it's kind
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, and oh God, what was I gonna go? Yes, but it's just like the kind of like uncritical response to this was amazing from not just on the left because that's kind of expected, but on the right too because you had like people like Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk who immediately decried this and spoke out in support of the supposed victim Nathan Phillips.
yeah, and it's one of those things too where if these kids were guilty of what was being said of them, yeah, they should be kind of ridiculed. But as far as like the violence threats and like all the really
Yeah,
nasty stuff
yeah.
was
That one guy, he was like, he put up a picture of like a wood chipper, and it's like, oh, people who wear MAGA hats, go head first into the wood chipper, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
yeah,
Like those are children, okay, and whatever, okay, and I'm not saying that they should skate, for truly reprehensible behavior, but they shouldn't their lives shouldn't be destroyed over it. There's calls of like calling or getting in touch of schools that they're applying to for college and stuff and like trying to get them to be denied. And it's like this one like again, if it happened the way that the left is putting it out there as, it shouldn't destroy their lives. It
yeah,
shouldn't
because
like
well,
just before they even have a chance to live them.
yeah, but the problem is that none of it happened. There's
No,
no question.
exactly. But yeah, and this is gonna ruin their lives before they even have a chance to get it started.
Yeah, that's the
And
really
that
sad part.
and to me that's the most reprehensible.